Zhao Shanghao, Namaste, Buenos Dias, Good morning. 为这一天感谢上帝 आज के लिए भगवान का शुक्र है Gracias a Dios por otro día. Thank God for this day. Ni hao ma, आप कैसे हैं? ¿Cómo estás? How are you? 我还活着，我很好。Me siento bien, me echa bien. Estoy vivo, estoy bien. I'm alive, I am well. 谢谢你的关注 आपकी interest का शुक्रिया. Gracias por su interés. Thanks for your interest. 我爱你们 मैं आपसे भी से प्यार करता हूँ. Los amo a todos. I love you all. That was Mandarin, Hindi, Spanish, and English. If you understand one or more of those languages, I was saying the same thing in them all, and I value my viewers very much. I care about your well-being, and I'm happy to connect with as many brothers and sisters as I can through my videos. This is going to be a bit of a language discussion. Thank you very much for your interest in my perspective on language development. Now, in reference to the situation where we have English very much so developed as a world language, since over 50% of the planet has now accepted English as an official language, there are some situations that I would like to bring to the light, and I would like to be very clear about this. When I talk about the economy things, and I talk about the health things, is very much so me being concerned and bringing things to the light in hopes of correcting them for future generations. But in reference to this conversation with language, it's not as much a concern as much as it is just bringing it to the light so we can adjust our attitudes accordingly, respectfully. Half of the world has taken on a second language to be included in the world, and they learned the language that the other half has as a mother tongue. So I only feel like it's very necessary that humanity use this to our advantage and that we show a little bit of respect in the opposite direction. So if you have increased your interest in proper language development of our world at this time in 2022, thank you very much for that consideration. It can really help the multilingual community relax. Again, the shift has been towards English for so long. In order to achieve this, many modernly bilingual countries and people were very much so just doing it out of language maturity and necessity. And it is very much so language maturity and necessity. We can't logically expect us all to only have one language. It's just not going to happen. But by unifying our second languages, that is where we have a lot of opportunities. Something you should know if you happen to be an English speaker is if you only speak one language, it's okay. If you don't want to learn another language, you don't really have to. And that is just the bold truth of it. And people that learned English as a second language know that that's the case because there is language maturity there. Again, these are not concerns. I'm just bringing this to the light. And in fact, a lot of the people that speak languages that aren't English, that see me speaking their language, will commonly think to themselves, what the fuck are you learning my language for? And an important note is, you don't have to be fluent in an additional language to enjoy it and expand your own language maturity. I am not fully fluent in any other language besides English. Mandarin is my strongest second language, and I am very strong in several languages due to my personal situation. But again, I'm not an average English speaker in that way. So I hope you can remain open to that. Just like I respect meat eaters as meat eaters, I do respect English speakers as English speakers. And some of the thank yous and considerations that I'm pushing in other directions, well, sometimes it seems like I'm saying a lot of the same things, because I am. One, because I'm learning, and two, because if I say thanks for your interest in somebody else's language, well, since so few people generally go the other way, it's really nice for those people to see me use their language, and in that I get to connect with them in that way. So like in the opening, I connected very much so with Mandarin, Hindi, Spanish, and English speakers in the exact same way, but at the same time, they will feel that respect that I'm offering. I'm not fluent in any of those languages, but again, I'm happy to help. That means I'm happy to help in Mandarin. So I hope those are all some open thoughts for our brothers and sisters that primarily speak and only speak English. Additionally, a lot of people that learn English as a second language and come to our country, they don't really have any beefs with speaking English because people generally like English. It's fast, it's customizable, and so in that, it's not a concern. It's just bringing it to the light. However, another perspective that a lot of people wouldn't have if they hadn't learned several languages is there are a lot of people in this great nation and in all the countries that are speaking English as a second language, and authentic English speakers have no responsibility to their mother tongue. However, I feel like it may be overlooked at how many people you don't have to worry about speaking their mother tongue to because they have already learned English. And in that comes a language maturity, and especially since I, as an authentic English speaker, bringing it to the light, it's a lot easier to see that they were just doing it and they didn't really need a pat on the back. They know in order to be included as a global community, we need to have a standard ground of communication, and we do have 4 very significant languages that are acting in that way right now for us. But ultimately, English is the most widespread, the most customizable, and seemingly looking like very much so a language of the future. So thank God again for helping us develop English. Thank you all again for learning and respecting the English language and helping us connect our world peacefully. Now, we do understand that languages are just languages, and it doesn't really affect their work ethic or any of their personal details in that way. There's good people and slimy people that speak all tongues and look in all different ways. So we know that it's more about a person's character. But something that is very confusing to me is a lot of our brothers and sisters will come into our country and learn our language and take on our economics and our ways of life to help us expand. Thank you all for moving to Canada and continuing to bless us with multilingualism and diversity. But the confusing part for me is, if those individuals don't make X amount of money on our land, in many cases, they are not allowed to stay in our land. And I can understand that there's a degree of protection for the Canadian economy in that you don't want people coming from other countries and just being dependent on your government's funding to survive if they're not willing to work. And that's very logistic and respectful in its perspective. However, very awkwardly, but directly, they're just human beings. They're willing to work. And I am not getting kicked out of this country, and they earn more money than I do. They're just human beings. And some of them are working 2 and 3 jobs to survive the economics of our country at this time. And in Nova Scotia specifically, it's so difficult because of the economic governing of our province and our country. But if they're making more than me, it can still be below the degree that they need to make. So in that, they move westward in hopes of earning more currency, and in many ways, once they leave Nova Scotia, that is possible. As a true Nova Scotian, we don't want to move, and we can't make that much money to the expectation of them before they get exported, and we're not getting kicked out. But very directly, a lot of the people that are here, well, they are dependent on government funding. So none of it really seems to make sense to me, because we're all just humans. And if these humans learned our language and came to our country and they're working 3 jobs, well, if your expectation is here and they can't meet it, stay in their home, they're working 3 jobs. They're working 2 jobs. But the thing is, so are we as Nova Scotians, as, authentic Canadians. And it's all very illogical. There's people that buy homes here and they can't afford to stay here and they have to move through. They don't want people being dependent on our funding. But at the same time, this entire governing system is governing us towards dependency and not self-sufficiency. That in itself is a fraudulent government by the very definition of government. That's not my rule. It's very much so intuitionally understood that a dependent worker is going to feel the stress of the dependency, and a self-sufficient worker is going to be more than happy to pay their bills and be a responsible person with their money because they're self-sufficient and they can live and apply a living for themselves. So it's all very numerically illogical. We could work 7 days a week right now and not be able to be responsible with our bills because of the numerical governing not being corrected. We entered a pandemic. We stayed home because the government told us to. The penalties kept coming, and now we need protection. The gas prices are gone up, and life costs are all gone up. There is zero maturity and zero protection happening. And when it comes to international governing in this way, there is zero room for leniency. Now, these individuals are very obviously not protecting us. And we, as responsible, modern human beings, are globally trying to discuss these things maturely and openly so that something can be figured out for future generations. We know right now, going back 50 years to 71, our grandparents were not protected, our parents were not protected, we're not protected, our health is at a low, we're at major risk of making a serious financial mistake that is going to be on the mentality of our children. And I hope everybody can remain calm and take this information seriously, because all I'm trying to do is very, very maturely speak up and help trigger some conversations about what to do, because we can't afford to wait for these individuals to protect our children any longer, just like their food organizations can't afford the financial loss of our children's health. And that is a very bold statement, and that is a very relevant statement to the situation of the population right now in 2022. So if you pay mind to my tone, you will hear that I'm trying to do this very maturely, but something has to be done. Again, I appreciate your ability and your willingness to hear me out and accept my information maturely. I'm going to wrap up this session for today. I have some very stressful things I need to do today. I have to do some intense house cleaning, and I generally enjoy house cleaning, especially with the right music, but in the circumstances, somebody's coming to look at the house, so it's kind of harder to be excited about cleaning it. I don't know what's going to happen in reference to my living, my home, but I also have some big conversations to have with my boss today at work. So I have a high stress day ahead, but coming online and discussing these things maturely and openly with my valued viewers is helping my stress level come down. So I'm gonna call it a video and get to what I need to do. But in the meantime, 今天吃得好，保持乐观，度过美好的一天。Eat good, remain optimistic, and have a good day. Peace and love to all God's children, regardless of status, age, gender, geography, or mother tongue. Because we're all just humans, we just want peace. Bye for now.